Hey. Okay.
Time to talk about some bullshit.
If you're on TikTok,
Even if you're not, you've heard of it.
yeah, oh my gosh, I know it's everywhere. But according to TikTok, we're all suffering from cortisol face and we need to do something about it. And the reason why your chin ain't snatched is because you got cortisol face and you got to do something about it. You got high levels of cortisol pumping through your veins and everything. It's causing wreaking havoc all over the place. And that's why you don't have that nice little chin snatching happening.
Listen, everybody got high cortisol already. That doesn't mean that we have cortisol
Yeah,
face.
tell me something we don't already know. America is stressed AF.
It's funny because you know how we've been talking about the last couple episodes, low-rise jeans are coming back and millennial fads from when we were in high school are coming back. This shit is also coming back. This is just adrenal fatigue 10 years later. It's the same
Yeah,
thing.
recycled.
But
Yeah.
it's like there was a period where it was like, "Oh my god, thigh gaps are back," or whatever, and then there was, like, this outrage of like, "No, don't tell us to be small again," and it's like, now you're trying to do the same thing, but it's like the TikTok that went viral is, "You're not ugly, you just have cortisol face," so we're gonna be
Oh, I
debunking
know.
that shit today. Same shit, different day. Wolf
It
in sheep's
is.
clothing, whatever you wanna call it, it's just these people who are trying to peddle freaking supplements. So, just everybody put your big girl pants on and hold your horses because we're going to break this down. Because the first time that I saw this, I didn't even watch the whole reel. I sent it to Christina and I was like, I'm going to rage when we talk about this.
Enter Dana.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so let's break down what is being said about what
Yeah.
this trend is and then what people are suggesting. And we can break down what's real and what's not.
Let me start with saying when I Googled what is cortisol face, the first thing that came up was cortisol face is a term that refers to a puffy or bloated face that some say is caused by high levels of cortisol, a stress hormone. However, experts say that this is not medically recognized condition and that cortisol is unlikely the cause of most people's facial puffiness.
Mhm.
I guess that's the end of the episode.
Yeah. Now,
It's not. It's
I
not.
will say, because also 10 years ago, your regular doctors were like, adrenal fatigue is not real, SIBO
I
is not
know.
real, a whole bunch of these conditions that
Totally.
adrenal fatigue is now burnout by the World Health Organization, right? So we do have to take this with a grain of salt, but
100%.
also this one is bullshit. So let's break it down. But
It's unlikely to be happening in mass amounts across the country to all these people. That is the thing. It's very rare for cortisol to be causing facial puffiness.
yes, unless it's Cushing's disease, which
Exactly.
is
And
an
Cushing's
adrenal,
disease,
yeah.
you need to be seeing your endocrinologist is what needs to be happening if
Yeah.
you suspect that you have Cushing's disease.
Mhm.
Right? And that's where your body does an overproduction of cortisol to a degree that it can cause wreaks all kinds of havoc because we're not supposed to have high levels of cortisol pumping through our body, but we do have mechanisms to help maintain that already in our body.
Mhm.
Ashwagandha is not going to save the day, guys. And that's one thing, and neither is your gawa sha, and neither is like this other stuff that people are peddling out there or all of those things either. If you are at a point where you're having Cushing's disease, you need to be seeing an endocrinologist because something is going on and that you need support, right? Or sometimes you might actually have the roundness of the face, like that's referred to as like moon face, because of taking steroids for a long period of time, which could be from any kind of medical condition for why you might need to take steroids. If you had lymphoma at one point, or you've had other types of cancers, other types of health risks or things that are going on that you actually have to take a steroid for a long period of time, that can lead to that roundness of the face that is associated with called moon face and things like that. It's like very serious.
Yeah. And like there's a lot of different things, like Christina was saying, in addition to those that can also cause roundness of the face. There are also a lot of different imbalances, for example, hormone imbalances that can contribute to more of a roundness of the face. But I think calling it cortisol face is just like in our functional medicine episode a couple of weeks ago, is very fear mongering esque and oh my gosh, this is the cause of everything. But then here's the thing that pisses me off is these people who are just like, "Oh, this is my experience, and if you do this, it will fix all the things because I did it and it worked for me." It's the same thing of the early 2000s of, "I lost weight, so you can do it too." But now it's, "Oh, you should take all these different supplements and all these different blah, blah, blah." And first of all, we've seen this many times and said this many times. Please don't just start taking random supplements that you see on TikTok or Instagram or whatever without getting the advice of a practitioner that you work with, because there can be a lot of different interactions, especially a lot of these different supplements that people are recommending are specifically adaptogens or herbs. And there can be a lot of different, very nasty side effects of not only taking these on their own and unintended side effects, but especially if you take other supplements or if you take other medications or if you have certain health conditions or if your stress is very high. I don't know, include every single person on this planet. Ashwagandha isn't going to fix all your problems. Rhodiola rosea is not going to fix all your problems. Reishi not going to fix all your problems. Ice rolling your face is not going to fix all your problems. And taking 10,000 steps a day is not going to fix all your problems. So let's all calm down a little bit. At the same time, chronically elevated stress levels can lead to a lot of different unwanted side effects in the body. So we can go ahead and talk about those also. But everybody needs to calm down about cortisol face because, first of all, not everybody has even what they're trying to describe as cortisol faces. Oh, if you have had prolonged elevated stress levels for a very long time, then your face is automatically going to develop this roundness. I think we've debunked that is not true.
Or highly unlikely. Like, you'd have to have Cushing's disease for that really to be
Yes.
the contributing factor for that. I think one of the things that I keep thinking about is, yes, we're all stressed, right? And yes, we're feeling these things. And yes, we may have noticed like a puffiness in our face or feeling like a swelling or whatever. I get it, right? Or feeling like we've noticed changes in our body that we feel uncomfortable with or that are new or whatever it is. And then you see these types of ads come up and all this stuff. You're like, man, I have been stressed. Oh my gosh. Like maybe that is a contributing factor for why this is happening to me. And maybe I should get this thing, right? That's very pervasive. It's like very convincing for why you would maybe want to do these things. But I think we have to take like a major step back and say, let's identify the fact that, yes, I have been stressed. There has been a lot of stress in my life. Okay. Perhaps I need to start back at the baseline, back it up way back and say, what is causing stress? What do I have control over that's causing stress? Right, in my life? Is it a systemic thing? No one's coming to save anytime soon from all of the things. And then also at the same time also, it's what else could be contributing to this? All right, sometimes our facial puffiness is from a lack of sleep.
Mhm.
Raise your hand if you've ever been personally victimized by poor sleep. Do you have children? Do you have young children? Do you have stress at work? Are you overwhelmed? Are you having a difficult time paying for your groceries because things are mad expensive? Like all of these different things. And I find it to be very frustrating for me when I have these types of ads come up. Is okay, you're stressed and this is why your face is round. And oh, here you go. Let me drop another thing for you to be stressed about and feel like it's your fault. What? That is like completely contradictory to the message at hand. You're telling me that I have puffy, like even let's say your face is puffy because you're stressed, right? Now you're just telling me that my face is puffy and it's my fault because I can't manage my stress well?
Here's another level of stress for you.
Now let's start stressing about that.
The thing that really annoys me the most about this, I guess there's like a lot of different things, but it's that you can't. Let's take the scenario where you have been stressed for a very long period of time. And listen, I could see a scenario where someone who has had extremely high levels of stress and cortisol pumping through their system. They have no resources or way to manage their stress. They're constantly living in a very high stress environment. They also have a bunch of other factors that are leading to inflammation, general swelling in the body. High cortisol can lead to sodium retention, which can lead
Mhm.
to some swelling in general. And then maybe you're also taking medications and maybe you're also not sleeping well. Maybe also you have allergies. Okay. All of these things can lead to some facial swelling and swelling in many different areas of the body. Taking a supplement is not going to fix that.
No.
And
It's rolling ice on your face or neither is not to say that those aren't supportive things as part of a larger thing that you're going to be doing to help get to the root of supporting your body, right? Those can be very therapeutically supportive interventions and things that you can incorporate in when you're working with a licensed practitioner to help you navigate those things for all the reasons that Dana said at the beginning of, hey, watch out. These don't always play nice with a lot of different things. So you have to pay attention to that. But also learning, I don't know, maybe all the yes, they can be part of something, but they are not going to solve the world's problems and they're not going to solve all your problems. And my thought is too is okay, so you do these types of things and it maybe
Uh-oh.
decrease. It's just going to come back the same the next day if we don't get to the root of what's going on. We're just going to continue to have those types of issues moving forward and it's going to just be a continuation of that. So we have to take a second and check in and do all that too and see what is going on underneath all of this. And how do I support all of those things at the same exact time? Like, why am I so stressed? Let me list all of the things. How can I support all of those things at the same exact time? And how can these things maybe play a role in supporting it? But to think that we're going to take some kind of medication or whatever the thing is that these TikTok creators are peddling to you, if you're going to think that's going to take it, maybe your face is less puffy that day, but if you have high levels of cortisol, that facial puffiness is just gonna come right back.
Mhm.
Or all of the other reasons why you would have that, right? Fluid retention, blah, 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 all the different things that can happen, the sodium, whatever. All of those things can continue to happen if you continue living in the same kind of stressful state that you're in all the time. We have to figure out a way to build some resiliency in there and reduce some of that for yourself and create support to reduce that.
Yeah.
That is the heart of it. Like,
Well,
let's go back to that.
right. And two things to come up with this as well is one, the original creator who made this video, you have to know that when she made this video and when she's stitching herself, right? So she's like, oh my God, look at me. I was so ugly. My face was so round. Who is she? I'm not the bitch in that picture, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, first of all, calm down, drama queen. But the funniest thing to me is that the main comments under that is, "Girl, you were a teenager and you've just lost your baby fat since then." Yes, you
Yeah.
also could have been very stressed, and I will say one of the things that can contribute to a round face is having an eating disorder and having a
Mhm.
like binge eating disorder and having all these different things can contribute to a round face. Probably because there's a stress hormone impact there, but also a lot of other things, which I think she did admit that she was engaging in some of those behaviors and very intense exercise, which can lead to some inflammation
Mhm.
regardless of the cortisol levels. But so that's let's just debunk the original video right there. But the other thing is you can't get out of a stress response or a burnout situation because we don't really call it adrenal fatigue anymore. Now we're calling it cortisol face, but it's just burnout, right? You can't get out the same way that you got in. So
Mm-mm.
maybe people will be like, oh, that means like I wasn't taking a supplement before. Maybe I'll take a supplement now and it will get me out. No. If you think about all of the different things that you have on your plate, like Christina was just saying, and say, okay, these are all of my factors that are probably leading to this situation where I'm extremely burned out. You can't just take a supplement that's going to be a band aid to all of those factors because Rome wasn't built in a day, girl. So you have
Mhm.
to figure out it took me a long time to get to this place. My body has constantly been trying to protect me through all these different things that we've been going through. And in the case of burnout, because I literally have an entire folder on my email from the last 10 years of people who have sent me emails of how do I lose weight with adrenal fatigue. Now we're calling it burnout. Weight gain, a lot of the time when you are burnt out or you're going through a bunch of these different crazy life factors and stressors, is a protective mechanism because the body's like, holy crap, you're going through it right now. And we need some extra safety pads here. So,
Mhm.
to make sure that you don't starve, we're going to have you retain some of this weight. Now, some of that can be,
And this fluid and all the things because it needs access to it when it needs it.
yeah.
This is why your blood sugar goes up when you're in a stressful state because the body's like, "Hey, I need energy
Yeah.
from someplace in order to manage all this." That's
Mhm.
also something else to remember too, and that can have downstream effects with all of this as well too.
Yeah, because ultimately, when we go back to what is the point of cortisol, right? Like, we're really getting into the heart of it now. The entire point of our nervous system as humans is to make sure that we can stay alive. And so, if that is the ultimate goal of the body, then we are looking at a true survival state, right? So when the body is like, we're trying to survive right now, it doesn't care about your hormones. It doesn't care about your digestion. It doesn't care about your reproduction qualities or potential. It doesn't care about you gaining weight or losing weight if it's trying to help you run away from a tiger because it's literally a life or death situation. Our biology has not evolved to the point where our nervous system can distinguish between a very real threat of life or death and the really stressful situation that you may find yourself in at work or with your kids. The same hormones are going to go off in the body: epinephrine, norepinephrine, cortisol, aldosterone, all these different things that are involved in sodium retention, that are involved in immune system suppression. Your skin and appearance can have changes. Your mental health can have changes if you have high cortisol for too long. Bone and muscle health, it's going to mess up your sleep. It's going to constrict your
Metabolic
blood
system.
pressure, all these different things, because the body is not meant to be in a state of survival mode for a prolonged period of time, because the way that it was designed to work is you are faced with this very stressful event, and then all those stress hormones work their way out of the body because now we're back in a safety state.
Mhm.
That's not really the way the world works anymore. At least that's not the way that our bodies interpret it. Because
And
we can have this stressful situation and this stress system, the nervous system, activate when you're sitting on the couch doom scrolling. Even if you are physically in a very safe environment, the same cascade of hormones can happen in your body.
something that I was thinking about too is some of the things that you're mentioning also are external things that lead to our sympathetic nervous system getting activated, but things can also happen on a very internal level, right? Your own decision, like your own feelings of safety. And what does that feel like if you have a history of trauma or you have a history of prolonged, depending on what type of blueprint we're looking at as far as like your attachment styles, what makes your body feel unsafe, even though you're like, this is not like a real threat that's happening right now, but your body internally is interpreting that as like a threat, right? So you can have these external things that are part of it, but then you can have also these very real things of like inside your body, like, oh, this feels threatening. This is activating my nervous system. And one of the things that my therapist and I, where we were just talking about this, because I'm learning boundaries, guys, is almost 40, learning boundaries. Woo! But it was funny because one of the things that he said to me was at some point you have to decide to engage in more activities that feel really good for your nervous system and are going to be supportive for your nervous system rather than continuing to engage in activities that activate it, that cause you stress, even if it's appeasing to other people, right? Like showing up to something that maybe you don't want to show up to, but you're doing it to make other people happy around you. That's not really good to your nervous system, right? Because you're going into it, your internal state is a little bit more activated at that point. You're a little bit more stressed. You might get anxiety. You might get overwhelmed. You might feel overstimulated. All of these types of things that kind of are those really great things that we're like, those like not great things, but these things that we're seeing consistently on social media about these things that are happening internally that are happening. Those are signs that your system is overwhelmed and that you're not doing a lot of great things that are bringing your nervous system into a more parasympathetic, more relaxed state. I think that was like, for me, just like a really great way of making it very succinct of at some point, we have to decide what we're going to engage in and identify what's internal that I have that is like almost like part of my downloaded DNA that's like part of me that I have to work on combating and supporting through therapies and whatever and all the different things too. And then what is outside of that that I maybe don't have that control over. I don't have a lot of control over that. I have two kids who come home from school and are demanding my attention. I can't do anything about that right now. And so that's going to be a little bit more stressful. But how can I interweave things that make my nervous system a little bit more happy and a little bit more relaxed so that I can feel more moments of glimmers and things like that and joy and all of those things. That ultimately is going to have a lot more support long term over anything that's going on with your cortisol, whatever, and the downstream effects of that more than anything else that you're going to purchase online. Hands down.
Yeah. Because one of the more, I think, insidious things, and we talked about this in our functional medicine episode a couple weeks ago, is people are making these claims under the guise of health. But what they're really
Mhm.
saying is, I feel like
Well,
I'm
smaller.
ugly because my
Mhm.
face is rounder and I don't like that. So I want my face to be thinner. So let's
Mhm.
not joke about this is for your health. Now, there is a different way to approach this conversation. Christina was just saying, if you do feel like you have been in chronic state of nervous system activation, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, then yes, it would do your body great to figure out what kinds of behaviors or situations or different tools or coping skills that you have access and resources to, and maybe some ones where we can work on growing our toolbox to find more things that are more supportive of your nervous system and encouraging you to move out of that sympathetic activation more into parasympathetic rest and digest. A book that I would refer to is Anchored by Deb Dana, who does a lot of research into polyvagal theory, and I'll link it in the show notes. And she talks about all these different states and different ways that you can develop an anchor when you're in a stressful situation or if you are activated, and trying to develop this sense of having an internal anchor over time, not even necessarily an external one. A person is your safe place, a home is your safe place, or something else, because you're going to be out in the world and you're going to be activated. And maybe you might be reactivated if you have a history of trauma and it comes out of nowhere, right? So, developing not only different coping tools and resources, but also having this notion of an anchor to come back to within yourself can help quiet the noise even just a little bit when you're in those situations. And honestly, even when we get into some of the different things that people are suggesting to help with cortisol face, quote unquote, but let's just call it chronically activated nervous system or burnout or adrenal fatigue or exhaustion or chronic fatigue or whatever you want to call it, right? Some of these things can actually be very helpful in bringing you back into regulation. Now, when we look at it as what we tend to refer to as a wellness productivity checklist, that is not going to help with your stress because that's a whole nother thing that's just going to add to your stress bucket. However, when we break down some of the things that we're talking about, like if you really love gua sha or face rolling or any of these things, that can be a way that you can carve out some time out of your day for yourself, right?
Mhm.
That in itself can start to help carve out this routine or carve out some time where you're like, you know what? I'm just
Slow
going to
down
take
your
this.
body, slow down
Yes.
your mind, slow down your system, like,
Yes.
doing d like, all of those things, right? And no, I appreciate where you're coming from. I think earlier on, we were talking about how they can be therapeutic
Mhm.
type of add-ons into this, but one of the things that I was thinking about I've never read that book, Anchored, that you're talking about, but when you were talking about it, it really reminds me of the type of therapy with interfamily systems, and you're creating your more authentic, like, anchored self in the center, and then you resource that in moments where you're feeling activated or when you're feeling overwhelmed or overstimulated, activate that. You have that available that you can go back to, and that is part of what IFS is, like, really about. So I would be interested in reading a little bit more about what she has to say and if she gets into that at all, or if that's maybe she has an IFS background. But that's where a lot of that comes from. We're not gonna be able to take away these triggers and these moments of things that are happening to us, especially if you're someone, like you were saying earlier, with complex PTSD or anything that has, like, a history of trauma of any kind or prolonged trauma, but you can resource, right? And that's something that's learned over time to support yourself, and that has lasting supportive effects on your overall system. But like you said, you can bring in these other types of tools as being a part of a whole system of, "Hey, I'm carving out time for myself," the same way that carving out time for yourself can be going for a walk at the end of the day
Mhm.
and having a couple minutes or playing with your animal. or reading a book at the end of the day, or different types of things that you can have as well that can help you center yourself a little bit in a very chaotic and overwhelming kind of world that we're living in.
Speaking of coping tools, one, we have a great episode with Big Doll on IFS and body image
Mhm.
from earlier this year, so I will link that in the show notes. But another recommendation, if you want to learn more about actual burnout instead of cortisol face and the different ways that millennials specifically get into burnout and different resources and tools that you can just play with as a toolbox. Because whenever I'm working with clients or suggesting something like this on the podcast, I talk about how we've got a toolbox of a whole bunch of different tools. Your job is to figure out which one works for you and which ones do you leave behind. Because just because you try a new tool and it doesn't work for you, that doesn't mean that you're a failure. That just means it was the wrong wrench for what you were doing, or the wrong screwdriver for what you were doing, or not the right tool for this season in your life, because that's an option as well. The book I'm referring to is Burnout by Amelia and Emily Nagoski,
Mhm.
which we actually haven't talked about in a long time. But I would
Mm-mm.
highly recommend you check out that book. Also, fantastic audiobook, and there is a workbook that goes with it. But when we're talking about these different tools, going back to what some of these other TikTok creators have mentioned, one of them was, oh, just take a shot of diluted apple cider vinegar every day and it'll fix your blood sugar. Throw that out. No, don't throw the apple cider vinegar out because it's great for cooking and vinaigrettes, but
Yeah.
don't throw it down your gullet. It's not going to fix cortisol face. It's not going to fix your burnout. It's also not going to fix your blood sugar. So let's just leave that one
Also,
behind.
that's not the reason why your blood sugar is elevated. If you want to take a root cause approach to why you might have prolonged elevated insulin production of insulin and things like that, and having over time,
Maybe it's taking
looking
Ozempic.
well, one, you might be taking Ozempic, yeah, which is also like literally increasing your insulin. So just a little side note. But also, too, we don't know what the long stream effect of that is, but I have an idea. But on the other side, it's more of like this idea of, okay, now if we want to support our blood sugar, apple cider vinegar is not going to solve that problem. It's nicely marketed for a nice little TikTok video about how this thin person was able to do this, right? And then the other part is it doesn't really get to the mechanics of why your blood sugar was elevated to begin with.
Mhm.
And that comes back to neutral nutrition education and supporting your system, period. All of these hacks and the things that are added on are just noise, adding more stress and things that you feel like you should be doing that you're not doing well, and they're not even based in fact. It's exhausting. No wonder everyone's so exhausted
Yeah,
because you have to weed through all this nonsense all at the same time. And then you feel bad about like, why you're not buying these things and you're heavily marketed to it. So you think, "Oh my god, I relate to a lot of these things. I have noticed that my face feels puffier. Is that why? Oh my gosh, I should be doing these things." I have like a lot of empathy for that.
of course.
Because I think it happens so much, and I think it's so easy to get sidetracked and get so influenced in wanting to buy these types of products because they really can tap into this place of, "Oh man, I feel this. I feel all of those things. I have been having this stuff going on. This has been a hell of a year for a lot of people. There's a lot going on in the world that is really exhausting and overwhelming and causing a lot of just base level overwhelm and kind of stress. And all those things are just a bunch of noise that are keeping you from being able to access the tools that you can do to help support yourself. And there's so many beautiful things you could be doing instead."
The other hard part about this and bringing more, like, of course you would, empathy to this conversation is if you feel like something is off and then you go to your primary care or something and they're like, and they actually do labs on you. Wow. Step one, wow. And you don't get offered Ozempic and you don't get fat shamed and you don't get the, oh, maybe you just should lose some weight. Okay, thanks. Never thought of that before. Wow. Is you leave feeling very disenchanted with that practitioner and also like you haven't been heard and you haven't gotten the help that you needed. So then if you don't have the money to go see a more functional practitioner because the economy is hard and everyone is struggling right now, it makes a lot of sense that you'd be like, "Oh my gosh, this person on TikTok said that I should take 10,000 steps a day and take apple cider vinegar and just take this supplement and then my cortisol face will be gone." Of course you're going to. That's so much cheaper than going to a functional medicine doctor. Of course.
Might as well try it.
Exactly, and that is the
Mhm.
mentality of a lot of people, and I might as well try it because it's a very, like, low cost intervention that they can do. We understand why. Debunking some of these other things that we've seen out there, we won't even go into the specific supplements because there's honestly so many different ones, but please just don't take supplements willy-nilly. The other thing that I do
Mm.
wanna talk about is the 10,000 steps a day thing, because that's been going around forever, and first of all, 10,000 was just a made up number.
It
Yeah.
was not based in any kind of scientific fact or anything. They literally plucked a number from around a room and decided 10,000 steps. There was no, like, scientific evidence behind that.
There has now since been research to show that taking 5,000 steps a day can be
Mhm.
very helpful. But here's the thing is a trend that I've been seeing with a lot of these creators and been there, done that, okay, is when you go to this place of 5, 6 days a week, high intensity interval training, running yourself into the ground, and then you're like, wow, I've really been running myself ragged and also under eating, and you switch to walking instead, your body is, dear God, thank you. Your nervous system is like, oh my God, low intensity? We've been asking for this forever. So, yes, in comparison to constant high intensity interval training, really heavy weightlifting, any kind of relative intensity for you, because intensity is relative for everybody. And I think that's really important to note is like what's intense for an Olympic athlete is going to be way different than what's intense for me, what's intense for Christina, and what's intense for this different person down the street, right? If you are doing any kind of relative intensity for you and you're under eating or you're not sleeping enough and you're already very stressed and you have all these other different factors, your body's like, why are we adding gasoline to the fire here? Can we please not?
Mhm.
And so then when you switch from that kind of modality to something that is ultimately a lot more restorative. Now we're not talking about 10,000 steps of speed walking like we're in the Olympics and your hips are shaking back and forth. No, we're talking about walk the dog pace. Maybe not my dog because she's a little nuts,
Oh my gosh,
but
Billy
regular
pulls so
people's
hard.
dogs.
Every day when I take Billy for a walk, me and Casey think to ourselves, "What are all those normal dogs out there?
I know.
And why do I have this lunatic dog that doesn't get the memo?" Like, she's, like, almost 10 years old, and she's bing-bonging all over the place, pulling on everything, and just so nutso. I'm
Yes.
like, "Where is this cool dog who can go over to that other dog and gently say hello nicely
Speaking of
without
stress
losing."
response activation, God, yes, I get that so hard. But when you're going from a lot of intensity to a lower intensity activity and your nervous system is, thank you, we've been asking for this for so long, that is in comparison a relief to your nervous system. And that can be a very restorative activity that can help lower your cortisol. Now, if we want to make this practical for everybody, going for a gentle walk, no matter how long it is, can help your nervous system calm down. Unless walking is painful for you, then that's obviously not going to help your nervous system calm down.
Yeah. You know what you're saying about having your nervous system calm down is interesting too, because one of the things that I was thinking about with one of the therapies that I have gotten really into and have really seen profound effects on my own stuff and my own nervous system is EMDR therapy. And what EMDR therapy really is about a bilateral stimulation and things that can stimulate bilateral stimulation that we would do that are like nervous system supportive or things like walking, right? Because you're moving your legs in a bilateral stimulation. Things like reading because you're moving your eyes in a bilateral stimulation and things like that. So it makes sense to me that having some of these slowing down types of activities would be really supportive because they're also supported with the research for bilateral stimulation for our nervous system that actually helps with the vagal nerve, which is I think very interesting. And so if you can't always access all of those things, but you're in therapy and your therapist is doing bilateral stimulation, you might find after you're leaving and you might have really great support through those things too. It's very interesting. And then one of the other things that I was thinking about too, when you're talking about the movement and the exercise, is our old episode about are you addicted to cortisol?
Yeah, I can link that in the show notes too. That's from last
Right? Because
year.
that whole episode was all about those high intensity workouts and the long stream effects on your cortisol and how you can get addicted to that adrenaline rush. And that stimulates your stress response over and over again. So like what you're saying, Dana, it makes a lot of sense that if you're going from something like high intensity workouts and then all of a sudden going to something that's a bilateral stimulation that's much more restorative, it makes sense that your system's going to be like, "Ooh, little hug." Like, thank God we finally slowed down.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's, I think, what we can leave you with in a little bit of an action step is take a little bit of an audit. What's in your stress bucket? What are all the different things that are contributing to your general stress levels? Because everybody has a degree of stress. If you are a person who's, I don't feel stress, you actually have a lot. So you're just dissociated from your
Sure.
body. So that's something to keep in mind. Also, been there, done that. I get it. So I find that the most helpful tools to help with this are tools that help you get more in touch with like your mind body connection. This is why stuff like yoga or guided breathing can be really helpful. However,
Mhm.
for a lot of people, because they have been so disconnected from that for so long, and sometimes that is a survival response, especially if you are a trauma survivor, I wouldn't necessarily go into that on your own because that can
Mhm.
actually activate the stress response. So, the first thing that I would do is say, what are all the things that are contributing to my stress overload on my plate? And also remind yourself that no supplement is going to fix that. So, then you can look at, do I have tools and resources to help? And we prefer to say process your stress rather than manage your stress because manage,
Mhm.
I think, is very outdated. But do I even have tools and resources available to me in an attempt to process my stress? If you don't, now's a great time to explore what sounds like it might be nice to try.
Mhm.
And if you feel like the
Yeah.
tools that you currently have or the resources or time that you have right now is not allowing you to try those tools, maybe it's a good time to just explore and see what might be helpful for me. And remember that even if you try a tool that has worked for so many other people and it doesn't work for you in this season of your life, it doesn't mean that you're a failure. It just means it was the wrong screwdriver for whatever project you were working on.
Or whatever your body needed. So true story, talking about that yoga thing. So this is like a little side note that might be that like people might relate to. But I went to this was like 13 years ago or something like that. I signed up for a sound healing with some friends of mine. And we're in the middle of it, and all of a sudden, everyone seemed so peaceful and so relaxed, and my heart rate was going boom, 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 like pounding the whole time. I got so overwhelmed in there, like I was basically having a panic attack. I had to leave, which I later found out was because it was too intense for my nervous system at the time. I panicked and I just ran out. I was like, "I gotta leave," and I just got up and left. Which was really interesting because at the time I thought, "What's wrong with me? Like, why can't I access this thing?" And the sound healing sounds so relaxing. I have since done it since then, and it was wonderful and all the things, but I think that's just, like, a story to remember, like, what Dana's talking about, that just because something isn't working for you in that moment, you also should honor that. Just because sound healing is great for a lot of people and everyone in there is peaceful, doesn't mean you have to sit through it if you're starting to have a panic attack and you feel like your heart is racing. Permission
Actually,
to leave.
please leave the room before that happens.
Yes. It was weird because it was like all of a sudden my heart was pounding. I was like, "Why can't I just relax? What's wrong with me?" Oh, because I was living in a very stressed state at the time and it hadn't been processed yet, and we were doing something because it was like the way the sounds were going, it was bilateral. I'm like, "Oh my god, this is way too over." I learned later on, way too overwhelming for my system at the time. But I think that's really interesting to remember too, that permission to leave and to find something a little bit more gentle if something is too intense. And then also, too, remembering that there's not something wrong with you. Your body's telling you a story, and it's our job to listen, interpret, and then honor it
Speaking of
always.
modalities, we will leave you with one last recommendation, I would say.
Mhm.
Another thing that has been going on for a while is these somatic workouts.
Oh,
And you will hear, not everybody, listen, not everybody, okay? But there are certain, I would guess, segments of these practitioners who do somatic workouts who basically say, as Christina likes to say, shaking your hips around on the ground is going to release all your trauma. And
Hey, it's not.
one, it's
Newsflash.
not.
It's
One, it's
not.
not. And two, we have an entire episode deep diving into that. So if you are interested in our deep dive thoughts on that and really breaking down what are the claims being made, similar to today, what are the claims being made? What does the science actually say? Why this is really not the best idea? Because just like Christina's experience, this is why this brought this up for me is like some people who do certain modalities when they're trying them out are like, "Oh my god, this really is activating me instead of relaxing me and releasing a lot of this stuff." That doesn't mean it's you. That means it's the thing was not right for you and maybe not right for anybody. Clearly it's right for somebody because somebody's making a lot of money off of it. But we will link that in the show notes, as well as the FS episode that we talked about with Meg, the Are You Addicted to Cortisol? We'll also link the functional medicine episode. And we would love to hear your comments on this discussion or if there's any other craziness trends that you would like us to break down on a future episode.
Yes. Goodbye.
Bye.